All right, guys, today we're going to paint this little Plumeria flower. The first thing that you're going to do is get your paints out. I'm using cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and permanent rose. So these are the three different colors that I'm going to be using today. I prepped these little cards for my class. These are very similar in my watercolor kits. And if you are not in my class, this is just to paint watercolor. So you can use whatever colors that you have at home. The first thing that we're going to do if you are in my class is you're just going to drop one drop of water on each one of those paints, just like I did. And then you're going to start with one of these petals. So what we're going to do with our Plumeria is we're going to paint each one of those petals exactly the same. So this is one that I already painted and I just cut it out because I thought that'd be kind of fun. And I'm going to show you something that you can do with it if you want to make a card or anything like that. So I'm going to start with one of these petals and then I'll skip to the next one. You'll see in just a second. So I'm just getting my brush wet. I'm using a size 6 brush. I'm going to start with the inside of that Plumeria petal, getting it wet. Oh, it was kind of a lot of water, so I'm going to just dab off a little extra. And I'm going to start with my light color, which is my yellow, because that's how you work with watercolor paint. I'm going to start at the center of that petal, and then I'm going to blend that out with my damp brush. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my red. This is my bridge color between my yellow and my pink. This is what's going to make it look a little orange. I'm going to blend that out. So I'm just layering it up like stripes. And if it's not dark enough, I'm going to grab a little more. My paper is just a tiny bit wet. That's okay. And then I'm going to add my pink to the top, and then I'll drop in more color as I need it. I'm going to just soak up some of this before it gets too wet. There. There we go. That's better. Just had too much water. A little bit more of that cadmium red. And then I'm going to wash my brush out and go back to my cadmium yellow and wiggle that out. Again, I used a tiny bit too much water, but that's okay. It'll have a nice, pretty texture to it. Now, I'm going to leave that little error. That's fine with me. And then I'm going to move on to not this petal, but the next petal. I want to create space in between each one. So I'm going to wet that surface and drop in my cadmium yellow. I'm going to wash my brush out, dab off the extra water, and fan that out or push it back. If I have too much, you can push it back. If you need some more, then grab it before you drag it out. Otherwise, you're going to dilute the color. Grab my cadmium red. This is a better consistency. You can see that my paper is not as wet. This is what you're going for. Wash my brush out. So when you have two different colors like this, you want to always mix with the lighter color depending on what you're trying to paint. But once you mix, if you kind of mix in the red to the yellow, that would make it really dark really fast. So you always want to mix in from your light color to your darker color. Great. So now I'm going to move on to the next one. And I said to skip it, but there is a little sliver of where the petal actually is shaped or kind of bent back. So you can, if you're careful enough, you don't have to skip a petal. And I'm painting pretty quickly, so I have the time. Or I don't have the time, really. Now red. Wash my brush out. wiggle it, grab my pink. And I'm using the Canson paper, Canson watercolor paper. This is 140-pound paper. Okay, now I'm going to do the next one. A little bit of water, wet to wet. Just leaving that area where it's bent. The petal is bent. I'm going to wiggle it out. Grab some red. Oopsies. Pink. Permanent rose. There we go. All right, this is dry, so I'm going to paint right over it. Last petal, same process. Yellow first. Wash my brush out. Red. Now remember, I'm going to mix these two with the yellow. I went back for more because I added just a tiny bit too much red. So, go, a little pink. So I'm going pretty quickly, but you should take your time. I like to go a little bit faster just for these videos so that it, you know, I can speed them up. Okay. So now we're at this point where we've done each one of the petals. I probably would go back. I can go back and fix this. As long as I'm using the same colors, I can redo this petal. So I'm actually gonna do that really quickly right now. I'm just wetting the surface really gently. Works better when you have, when you're using your 100% cotton watercolor paper. It just doesn't agitate the paint. The paint sits a little bit more when you're using watercolor paper that is not 100% cotton. So it'll sit on the surface a bit more than if you're using 100% cotton. Now back to my yellow. There we go, that's looking way better. I'm just holding this flower, I guess. Okay, so what I want to show you is that the edge of each one of these petals is pretty light. So you don't want to paint this part of the petal until the whole entire thing is dry. So I can paint that part of the petal as long as the rest of it is dry. So I'm going to do that just with not Prussian blue. I'm going to use this permanent rose to create just a very, very light pink. And what you're not seeing, it's probably really hard to see at home, but some areas I'm overlapping into the next petal, and that's totally fine. So you don't have to be incredibly precise if you're drawing it or if you're painting one of these cards from my class. I haven't turned this into a kit yet, but this is a really pretty one, so I might have to turn this into a watercolor kit. Okay, well, the rest of them are pretty wet. I'm gonna create a bit of an outline just to create a little shadow inside. Now, if it's dry and I don't like that kind of hard edge, I can blend that out with a semi-dry brush. Okay, I'm just holding this other one so that you can see how it kind of comes together. And then one of the last things that you're going to do, as long as it's dry again, you're going to add some of these little details coming off from the middle. I'm just going to, that's pretty good. Okay. always test your colors out on a swatch. So that's what this is. I'm just painting right next to this, so I don't really need to test it out. But if I was mixing colors, sometimes I'll mix the colors on a swatch so I can see exactly how it's gonna look on the paper. It just makes it a little bit easier. There we go, not too bad. Pretty easy. So this whole entire process is mainly the wet into wet process. Then you're gonna let those petals dry before you do this final layer where the petal is bent. So where it kind of bends and curves. And especially if you're gonna add any of these little shadows like I'm doing right now, make sure that the surface is wet. Otherwise you're gonna get a lot of cauliflowering. This is just a little bit of glazing, just to add some shadows. So you can make it look more illustrative or a tiny bit more realistic. And this is still wet, so I'm gonna give it a second before I add these other tiny little details. Now while that is drying, I just wanna show you that, you know, once you're done with something like this, you could easily turn this into a greeting card. And I thought this would be really cute if you curled up the edges. So I already cut this out. And then if you just find some sort of wide marker and then just kind of roll that petal up over each one of those, kind of makes it look a little bit more realistic and pop. So what you could do, of course I don't have a card right in front of me. Let me grab something. Okay, so if this was your card, you could have it would sit up like that. Put one of those little puffy double-sided sticky things right there. You could also paint the edges, the backside of your Plumeria, so that when it is sitting up and curled, it looks slightly more realistic. So this would be really cute if you're making a little card. And you could probably do that with just about any flower painting that you make. Okay, cool. Very cute. Look at how cute this would be. And you know, I'm rushing it, but that would be really, really sweet. You could do a bunch of them or a few of them all over the paper, over the front of your card, or maybe you have one that's painted and one that's painted and cut out that kind of pops up, give it some dimension. So that's really it. If you wanted to, just like I said, you can always go back. I kind of am one of those people that can't stop with the details. I might feel like, oh yeah, I'm done, and then I'm really not done. I'm just gonna keep going and going and going like I am right now. But it's totally up to you how detailed you want to make it, but it's very cute, very simple. And there you go. That's it. Hope you have fun painting.